Hey, well, what's up, Colliders? Welcome to the Collision Live, now featuring our new fancy snazzy buffer video. But joining you as always, your old favorite host, Daniel here, joined at the desk by the spicy chicken sandwich to my crispy waffle fries, Mr. Sam Kemp. What's up?
The comparison's never ending. I'm amazed at how, do you stay up late on Monday nights just sort of thinking, like, well, so what iconic combo?
Yeah,
I think of
I was up till... couldn't sleep last night up till almost 2 o'clock, and still that's the best I could come up with. But hey, we're excited to join you guys. Thanks if you're joining us for the first time, or if you've been kind of joining us for the last however many months we've been doing this show.
For the last 33 episodes?
Yeah, last 33 episodes. Again, we've been excited to kind of keep growing the show, add new features. We got more fun stuff kind of teed up, ready for the next couple episodes, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, if you guys haven't joined us before, we just take a couple minutes to talk about what's going on in pop culture, kind of how do we approach it as Christians and contribute to the conversation and learn from the conversation and just sort of be present in this world that God has placed us in. And again, there's a couple interesting stuff I thought we could talk about today. Again, we invite you guys to share your thoughts, share your opinions, ask questions. If you guys agree with us, if you don't agree with us, you got a different perspective. We'd love to this sort of dialogue with this. We don't claim to have all the answers. We just kind of want to talk it through and see if we can kind of get a little closer to an answer. Again, a couple kind of interesting stuff coming up. First topic I thought we should talk about is Justin Bieber. I know Sam is a Belieber, a longtime card-holding member of the Belieber fan club. But again, he's been obviously he's been in the spotlight for a while now. Kind of a very controversial, kind of love to hate him kind of guy. But again, he's been on this interesting journey, sort of this kind of faith journey that he's kind of been embracing, kind of similar to like a Kanye West. These kind of superstar, super in the spotlight guys that are kind of becoming bold about faith and talking about that. And again, he was just featured in GQ magazine. He was doing an interview, kind of sharing about, kind of his old, I think the article was called like The Redemption of Justin Bieber, a bit of maybe a pompous title, but just kind of sharing about his career and kind of where he's come from as a child star. And he kind of gets into kind of his faith and some of that stuff. And there was a section of this article that I thought would be it touches on maybe a wider theme. So even if you're not necessarily a believer like Sam, I think there's some relevant stuff that he's saying. And again, the context for this part of the interview is he had previously aligned himself with kind of the Hillsong Church, which again has been hit by at least two kind of sexual scandals, controversies with two of their pastors that have kind of been fired, let go, kind of in disgrace for some moral failings. And so Bieber kind of says he no longer associates with that particular church. But without kind of name dropping that specific context, here's sort of his quote, this sort of about some of that issue. The article says, he says that he has seen firsthand how faith in its various institutional forms can morph into just another kind of celebrity worship. And then him saying, I think so many pastors put themselves on a pedestal, he says, and it's basically church can be surrounded around the man, the pastor, the guy. And it's like this guy has the ultimate relationship with God that we all want, but we can't get because we're not this guy. That's not the reality, though. The reality is every human being has the same access to God. And again, he's kind of, I think even for our own sake on this show, we can go beyond like pastors, kind of church leadership, but he's just sort of pointing a finger at this kind of celebrity culture. Again, we know that celebrity culture exists sort of in the secular world, kind of outside of the church. And I think Bieber is touching on an important thing, kind of saying, hey, there's a tendency even within the church, within the Christian community, to kind of elevate people onto these pedestals, kind of, as these champions for the faith, these spokespeople, whether it's a musician, a pastor, some kind of a politician, some famous person. And he's saying, hey, that's a problem in the church, just like it is outside of it. So you hear these comments from our theologian Justin Bieber here.
Mm-hmm.
What are your beloved, what are some of your takeaways from this?
No, I mean, I think he's onto something there, and I think it's very, very much the case within the church, because once again, the church is filled with people, and people aren't that different inside the church and outside the church. And so I think we all have to fight that tendency to idealize and to sort of put up in a special category just various leaders or just popular figures for whatever reason. And so I think it's the same in the church as it is outside the church. That tendency within human nature to say, oh, this person kind of has it figured out and knows what's going on. And he mentioned that the pastors put themselves on this pedestal, and that may be the case, but I also think it's on the church itself that I think a lot of church members will put pastors, worship leaders, Christian athletes, or whoever, X, up on this pedestal and want them to sort of do the thing of being a good Christian that maybe the average Joe is afraid to be, or thinks that, like, well, I could never have the platform that this person has, so I'm just going to just retweet and post everything that this person says and essentially kind of put them forward as the representative elect.
Because you can even get I was thinking on, if you guys are on Twitter or active on social media, almost like the Christian intellectual has become this kind of cool thing lately now with Twitter and platforms. You kind of have these spokespeople, these sort of, and a lot of Christians kind of almost like a team sport. This is our guy. This is, he's out there fighting these battles, picking fights online with other people that disagree about theological issues or, against the world or whatever. And I think there is I've said this in other contexts, but and we've got into it about kind of the alternative kind of conservative Christian media to take on Hollywood. Yeah. That I think there's just a tendency for Christians to kind of become the thing that you're resisting, to, the way we are going to kind of push back, this is wrong, and they have their champions, and these, we don't want celebrities kind of being these spokespeople for issues, just stick to what you're doing. But then kind of the reverse of that is we tend to kind of want to have our own champion. We want to, when a guy like Chris Pratt is exposed as, being a church goer and a Christian, we want to embrace him, and he is now the spokesperson. He's sort of the ideal because he's cool and he's famous and he's on our team.
And he's out there in the world.
Yeah, he's in Hollywood, and those of us that aren't in Hollywood can kind of cheer him on as he kind of goes and fights those battles. Send him out to go face Goliath.
Yeah,
and, I don't know. What's sort of the danger? What is?
Well, again, the danger is not all these people are brave future King David, and they're not all going to beat Goliath, and they may actually be flawed humans and people who have very serious issues privately. And so the danger is that becomes the focus and not, living the Christian life that you're called to live, working on your relationship to Christ and sort of defaulting and sort of maybe substituting this person for the sort of relationship that you're supposed to have with Christ and the sort of witness that you're supposed to be. And so it kind of all just kind of distorts around this person. And then, not everyone, but a lot of times people in those positions have failures. And we've seen there have been a lot of high profile moral failures of Christian leaders. And so, you're kind of reeling after that. If you put all of your hope in this person to sort of be the champion and then they let you down, which was never the intention of Christ to begin with. He was not, the goal was not to get one great leader and the church goes forward. It was the church being the people. It's
almost like the equivalent of they talk about an armchair quarterback. This guy sitting there with his his popcorn, his beverage, just sort of throwing popcorn. I would have made that throw or whatever. And I think there's obviously, I think celebrities are, they have responsibility, in their own actions. It's not like they're off the hook by any means. But I think there is, like you were saying, we set them up, kind of put an enormous amount of pressure on these people that to be these elegant spokespeople that maybe they have a platform because they can sing or they're really good at making jump shots. But that doesn't necessarily translate into, something that came to mind, I guess it's been a couple of years now, or a year at least, but the Lauren Daigle, Christian artist, super popular, kind of, as we would have said back in the 90s, a crossover artist. She was on a talk show and asked some stuff about, kind of sexuality and some of those issues, and just made some kind of real wishy-washy answers to that, and just wasn't very good, well stated. And I know there's a big backlash to that, and she was seen as this failure, and all these people that and again, I'm including us. Yeah, and it's people that would never tell their hairdresser, their barber that they go to church. But if I had been on that talk show, if I was on the late night show, I would have preached the gospel sermon.
You had one chance.
And I think it's an unhealthy model. Again, I think that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't respect or there's
for sure
there's a tension even with Bieber in this article of sort of placing himself he's in kind of denouncing these celebrity spokespeople for the faith, he's being a celebrity spokesperson for the faith.
Yeah.
So again, there's a tension. I don't think it's wrong. I think people should use their platforms, and we should want to support that. But again, I think as Christians, there's disappointment for us. I think there's consequences for the world when we.
Yeah.
I remember another example. I think it was what's her name? Jennifer Garner, I think, had made a comment on a talk show about kind of faith and stuff, and Christian media just blew up with all these, a light in Hollywood and darkness, all this stuff. And I think it was the next day she released that she was reading some audiobook, some kids sort of audiobook that was just super vulgar, really kind of edgy, kind of satire kind of stuff. And it's just funny how that whole conversation, again, I don't know what her faith is, not necessarily saying she's not a Christian, but it's just, it's okay, we got another one, and we're so quick to anoint them as and then it's oh, well, maybe we don't want to support that, or so again, I think it's something that as Christians, there's a lot to wrestle through with that. But I think especially the last year, it seems particularly, I don't know if it's just because there's more exposure to it, more media coverage, but it just seems like there's been a string of kind of failures by these leaders. And I think it should be a wake-up call to us that, again, our Christianity and our faith doesn't hinge on what some famous Christian does or doesn't do.
Yeah, and I would just one last thing to say is that I think there is a difference between sort of faith leaders, so pastors, those types, versus celebrities who come out vocally, in as Christians and are trying to work through, or just recently are converted. And so I think we also need to not just tack on all of our Christian churchy hopes and dreams on this newly minted Christian who is becoming a Christian in a very public light, and so I think we have to be careful not to just say, oh, isn't this great, and hang all of our hopes on this person who just came to faith but is public about it. And so let them work it out, and let's not be quite so oh, you're the next person who speaks on behalf of all Christendom, and so just to kind of have a little more grace as well, I think, in letting people figure their life out.
I think grace is a good thing. Grace is a good, again, it's exciting when some of these people are given platforms to do it. But again, we as Christians maybe don't have that big of a platform. I think we need to have grace for and kind of support them through that. But again, let us know your guys' thoughts if you have any insights into that. Back by popular demand, our beloved segment after its maiden voyage is back once again. Pop culture news. So again, if you guys missed last week when we debuted this, again, we just sort of look at, not in great detail, but just sort of what's going on in culture, any kind of interesting stuff, just to kind of stay aware, kind of keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening. Again, we don't need to break it all down, but a couple things that kind of, in the last couple of days, probably the biggie is that NBC announced that they won't air the Golden Globes in protest against the Hollywood Foreign Press for not being as diverse and I don't think they have any black members on the voting committee and some other issues, and it's being kind of a controversy. So they've announced that unless they find another network, there won't be airing the Golden Globes, which means about 200 people will notice that it's not there.
The subtext is we don't have any ratings.
Yeah, and again, it's hard not to think that they waited to make this moral stance until the show itself was fairly toxic for ratings to begin with.
We couldn't find advertising.
Elon Musk hosted SNL. It's funny, we talked about that last week. All this, fear and controversy and stuff before it happened. Then it happened, and it's just sort of like, okay, move on. Nothing controversial happened. It's sort of much to do about nothing. Stranger Things season 4 released its teaser. I'm not sure exactly when that show comes back. I'll be honest, I kind of checked out after season 2. But again, it's still kind of a pop culture big movement. Gal Gadot and Josh Whedon. I don't know if you followed any of that, but Josh Whedon kind of he's been a very public kind of feminist and very outspoken in Hollywood. And now a lot of the people that have worked with him have becoming outspoken about him and just very abusive character personality on set and threatening to end careers. And again, I think it maybe some other time we can get into more of the details, but it kind of exposes that there's sort of that public kind of virtue signal of, we're for this and we support this. But the reality is that kind of behind the scenes, there's still a lot to work to be done. And then again, the last thing is Donald Glover this morning was kind of tweeting about TV and film. And maybe we'll get into that in more detail, but just saying, hey, fear of kind of being canceled has actually kind of neutered the creativity, and people are just scared to take risks now with content, and it's resulted in some boring TV. And again, I think that's is a powerful celebrity talking out on that. But real quick, any of that's going to stand out to you as interesting? Or
yeah, I mean, I think we'll see how long the coattails of Stranger Things season 1 lasts, and so we'll see if it still has the magic 4 seasons in. I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical. I don't know how many different directions a guy can go with.
Yeah, I mean, season 2 had Sean Astin of Goonies and Lord of the Rings fame, and you can never have, too much Sean Astin.
That's true.
So again,
I'm rooting for it. Like I hope it does well. So
yeah, we will be checking that out, even if it's not as hyped as maybe it once was. So kind of our second topic for today. This is actually inspired the great philosopher Sam Camp. Was out living his life, ascending to the top of the mountain, thinking deep thoughts, had an epiphany about culture. So maybe I'll just hand this one over to you, because I think it does touch on a relevant issue, like a general one for all of us. But
yeah, well, I was thinking about just sort of the entertainment that we consume, and well, the other day I listened to a lot of podcasts and audio books, and so I feel like if I'm running or whatever I'm doing, if I can be listening to something and sort of my thought was, you're redeeming the time, right? Like you're just, you're bringing in information, you're learning something or being more educated about the world or whatever. But the other day I just listened to some music when I was doing some odd jobs around the house. I was like, wow, this is really nice. Like just listen to some good tunes, just enjoying the music and not having to be like taking in new information, but just really just enjoying the music, which I hadn't done in quite a while, and it got me thinking about even just TV shows or movies that I choose to watch. Do I choose these because I really want to see them, or is it more just to have on in the background rather than just like, oh, this is something that's going to be really good? It's like, well, this is something, and so now I can just like be on my phone and have this thing playing. And so just the idea being like, is the entertainment that you choose, is it worth choosing because it's that good, or is it really just like a thing to have on to distract you from something else?
Yeah, and I think kind of even like another aspect of that too is like, because when we were talking about this the other day, is I know as someone that's been kind of in this world of Christian culture, and there's tons of of articles or sermons or things kind of about wasting time, as far as like we're called to do more than just binge Netflix all the time. And again, that is a way of not redeeming the time. And I think kind of when we were talking about this and just sort of enjoying the music and like it's almost like the other side of that. Like, is there a balance between where all of our kind of leisure is, we feel like we got to redeem it to the sense that like we're just constantly more information, we're double dipping, we're trying to watch a show and do this and listen to a podcast, and we got this sort of information, and we got to be engaged with culture, and it almost becomes a form of homework all the time, where it's like we're watching this because it's important and it's relevant, and kind of like this sort of like, is there a way to redeem leisure and entertainment that kind of goes the opposite of conventional wisdom of like, being less informed, being less kind of, you know, having to engage on like a intellectual way and just sort of enjoying it. But what do you think? So how you? I know we both
I think that's,
struggle with this.
Right.
Balance.
I think that's the thing, and I think for me, wanting to like, okay, if I'm going to sit down and watch a movie or watch a TV show, just think about it first and say, okay, am I okay to watch this and not like be on my phone? You know, and I think that's a good test for me. Like, is this worth watching if I don't have access to my phone and like I'm not like doing other stuff? And so, and again, I mean, there's times I think when you can have something on that, you know, that's maybe not as like critical or whatever, and you can just be sort of enjoying it in the background. But I think a lot of times the default is to just have something on so that you can also be doing other things. Whereas I think there is something just about immersing yourself in the entertainment and just kind of being fully present in whatever it is you're watching, whether it's a movie, TV show, or music, or what have you, and not just like, okay, it's, you give less thought to it, and it's just kind of there, and you can still be checking like your email and social media or whatever. And so I think for me, it's almost becomes not worth it unless it's like, okay, I really want to see this, and I don't just want to like, everybody's talking about this, so let me tick the box, and yeah, I'll kind of watch it or have it on, and just so I can say I've seen it. Or
and again, if you guys are watching us live, or if you're watching us at a later time, could you guys let us know how you kind of find that balance? Because again, I think as Christians, we know, you know, that just spending every evening just sitting on the couch eating popcorn, watching Netflix, that, you know, that we're not redeeming our time, that there's more to it than that. But kind of on the other side, I feel like sometimes there's this pressure to be so, you know, to redeem our time so well that we're triple dipping, and we're trying to, you know, just overload. You know, I hear people that, you know, they're following like 12 different podcasts every week, and it's this information, and they're trying to keep up with all, you know, political and culture in this area and that area. And I don't know, I just sort of, when you were kind of sharing some of your stuff, like, is there a point when we kind of, in trying to make the most of our time, stuffing it so full that we're actually failing to redeem the time? And, you know, because I think obviously there's more to it than just God wasn't necessarily thinking about, you know, an evening watching Netflix when he established the order of creation, but like, you know, like taking a whole day of rest sort of as that model for humanity. Like that's a big percentage of the week.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
just don't work. You know, there's value in, you know, in rest. And again, God intended us to use that time to worship Him, and not just to, you know, binge shows. But I think, I don't know, do you think that kind of gets missed? Like, is there too much pressure? Almost like a guilt that like if we're just watching shows or reading a book. Right.
And I think that goes back to the choose wisely, you know, what it is you're going to spend your leisure time on. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand, because I think a lot of times we don't choose wisely. And so it's like, well, you know, this is a pretty okay show, but like, as long as I'm like doing something else too. But I think if we like pick entertainment that it is good and it's something that it's worthwhile to sort of set everything else aside and engage with that entertainment, even if it's like reading a novel, you know. And I think that's one of the great things about reading a novel. And we both just read the On Reading Well, and it's just there is something valuable that goes beyond just that sort of this is information, this is learning, this is all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, I'm just enjoying this book. You may learn something, but at least you're going on a journey with the author, with the protagonist or whatever. And it just accesses this different part of our brain. And that's kind of what it was with me for the music. It was like, oh, this is like, I don't know. It just added this calm that I just hadn't had in a long time, simply because I wasn't just sort of like trying to input and absorb more information, but just enjoy some good music while I was doing something. And it provides that sort of rest, I think, that oftentimes we struggle to have because we are so go all the time.
Yeah, again, on that Reading Well book, she distinguishes between kind of being informed and being formed, and kind of making the case that, you know, as Christians, we need to be both. We need to be informed about the world. We need to, you know, stay up on current events, and podcasts are great, and documentaries and all this stuff, but there's also kind of, as part of our healthy development and spiritual development, personal development, to just be formed, to be
Yeah.
kind of built up, to be encouraged, to be edified, to be kind of made to think in a different way through entertainment. And C.S. Lewis has a different framework of kind of using entertainment art and receiving it.
Yeah, which
So,
I love. I love that.
Yeah, I go
picture.
again. That's on his treaty in experiment and criticism, where he kind of talks about, we tend to sort of approach it in a very pragmatic way, and kind of dissect all the entertainment and what can we get out of this, rather than just sort of allowing ourselves to receive what it has to offer. Again, I think there you kind of see some of that just in culture. I think our heads are so stuffed with just information. I think Christians in some ways are more engaged in some of those fields than maybe we've been in a very long time. But I think there is that lacking of just kind of developing as our character and our person, and just sort of kind of feeling some of that rest. And I think what you were saying too, as far as just being purposeful, I've tried to, I don't have it's not a hard fast rule, but for me in the evenings is to be intentional, to be productive. And again, being productive can be having a bath, can be doing something relaxing. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be work, but just I try and have a purpose to whatever I'm doing, where it's not just, well, I'm not doing anything, so I guess I'll watch another TV show.
I'll let Netflix pick the next one.
I'll let Netflix shuffle play, just choose. I just want to watch something. I try and kind of avoid that. Do you have any just sort of before we kind of move on to the end, any, I guess, practices or things that you do to try and guard? Because I know we both have a tendency to want to just get a lot done and work too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes just being able to just mix things up a bit. So for me, it was just taking some time on my drive to just listen to some new music, rather than another podcast or an audiobook. And I think the music it just helps, I think, access different parts of your brain. It gives you a bit of a space. It's more creative, and you're not just sort of analyzing everything all the time. And there's actually enjoyment that comes from that. And so I think rather than just sort of, again, try to use everything that you're getting, but just try and receive it more, I think is the big part of it. And then also just, I want to really be able to say, yeah, I really want to watch this show or that movie before I decide, okay, I'm gonna watch this. Because a lot of times you just say, well, it's the end of the day, I just kind of want to just relax a bit, and so it really doesn't matter too much, but one of these shows I'll just put on for 20 minutes and then I'll go read a book or something. And so rather than just kind of having that filler time with something that you may or may not care that much about, setting it aside and being intentional with it, like you said. Yeah,
I think maybe a closing metaphor is, I think this, I know you're training for a crazy wild man, training for a 100-mile bike ride.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see how that goes. Again, I run marathons. I'm always kind of training for that. And I think if you guys have ever done training like that, you got to put in the work, got to do that.
And it's the miles,
the miles, but the rest is built in to the training. And again, if you don't rest, then you're not getting the most out of the miles that the training. I think the same is true with entertainment and stuff. That just because you're not getting some new information or really intellect and podcasts, just because you're resting and just doing something that doesn't require as much kind of mental, doesn't mean you're wasting the time. You're actually kind of setting yourself up to get the most out of that other time. So again, I think as Christians, we don't need to be squeamish about just enjoying the good that is in pop culture and entertainment. But again, let us know what you guys think, and if you guys have any ways that you've navigated finding some of that balance. Again, this week at The Collision, I mentioned it last week or 2 weeks ago. Wrote an article on Billie Eilish and some of that. With her Vogue cover shoot. Obviously, it's a controversial issue. I kind of wrestled with how to navigate some of that, whether I should even touch on it at all as a dude.
But you're a man.
Yeah, but I'm a man. But again, I think my main point is more to point the finger back at just sort of the Christian community and the church, and kind of evaluate using that moment, as kind of inconsequential as it is, as a mirror to what can we actually learn about the way we respond to these issues, and is there something that in us, not necessarily worrying about what Billie Eilish does or doesn't do. It's just something that we as a Christian community can do different. So again, encourage you guys to check that out. It's up on thecollision.org. And let me know your thoughts and be gentle, because it is. I did wrestle with that one. But again, guys, thanks for joining us. As always, appreciate you guys taking some time to watch us live or join us later. Again, please share your thoughts, comments. We love to get any feedback. We hope you join you again. Stay tuned. We might not be doing an episode next week. I'm out of town speaking at a conference.
We'll see. So TBD.
So we'll see, but we'll announce that before before Tuesday next week. But guys, thanks for joining us. Have a great week and continue to collide with your world for Christ.